Hello everyone, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming. My name is Malachi Gardner. Today I'm going to be unboxing the Dark of Mirkwood scenario pack for the Lord of the Rings LCG. I hope you all enjoy the video. Alright, so this is the Dark of Mirkwood scenario pack for the Lord of the Rings LCG, and I am looking forward to checking this out. So this expansion here is for the new product line for the Lord of the Rings LCG, where they're basically republishing old expansions, old content, with a new campaign mode. And then this is the Dark of Mirkwood scenario pack here, which is the newest release. And this contains two scenarios that were originally from the limited edition, like anniversary box or whatever it's called. I can't remember exactly what it was called. It was a limited print run where you could get this limited edition thing. It came with a unique playmat, some alternate art for the different starter decks, and various things. And it also came with two new scenarios. And those scenarios were not widely available because they were part of the limited edition core set. And many people, including myself, were not able to get the limited edition core set, so we were not able to try out these scenarios. And so then this is a re-release of those two scenarios, and now this is widely available to everyone. So very cool. If you already have the limited edition core set, you already own these scenarios, but for everyone else, these will be new scenarios, so which is very cool. And then, of course, there will be new campaign cards added into the scenarios, and I believe these scenarios will be able to be plugged in to the campaign from the revised core set. So, let's go ahead and give this a read. Brave the perils of forest and cave in the Dark of Mirkwood, an 82 card expansion for the Lord of the Rings, the card game, that features two previously released scenarios. A group of wicked goblins have raided a settlement on the eaves of Mirkwood, taking the woodmen as their captives. Pursue them into the forest in the Oath, and venture deep into their lair to perform a daring rescue in the caves of Doom. These scenarios can be played by 1 to 4 players, either as a standalone adventures or as an extension to the Lord of the Rings, the card game core set campaign. The Lord of the Rings, the card game core set is required to play. Okay, so we have two decks of cards here. I'm assuming each of them have about 41 cards. And we have this, which is nothing. Okay, so just some art there. Alright, so we have this little rule sheet here, which has a expansion symbol, which is always a good thing to have, so you can determine where the cards are from. And then it says, welcome to the Dark of Mirkwood expansion for the Lord of the Rings, the card game. This expansion features two unique standalone adventures, the Oath and the Caves of Doom. Alternatively, these adventures can also be played as an extension to the Mirkwood Paths campaign that begins the core set, or as their own two-scenario mini-campaign. Alright, and then we have some flavor text for the two scenarios, and then some rules for the campaign mode, which I will go ahead and read. The Dark of Mirkwood expansion can also be played in campaign mode, either as an extension to the Mirkwood Paths campaign from the core set, or as a two-scenario mini-campaign. Instructions for each of these options are detailed below. For full campaign mode rules, see pages 30 to 31 of the Learn to Play book included in the core set. Alright, Mirkwood Paths. To play the Oath and the Caves of Doom as part of the Mirkwood Paths campaign, you must first play the 3 core set adventures, Passage through Mirkwood, Journey along the Anduin, and Escape from Dol Guldur in campaign mode. When setting up the Oath in campaign mode, use the same campaign log that was used for parts 1 to 3 in the Mirkwood Paths campaign. The Oath is part 4 in the Mirkwood Paths campaign, and the Caves of Doom is part 5. And to play the Oath and the Caves of Doom as a 2-scenario mini-campaign, simply skip the 3 core set scenarios and begin with the Oath. Use a blank campaign log from the core set to record the resolution of the Oath before starting the Caves of Doom. And then we have some credits in the back here, which are always good to look at. So we have, the 2 different modes there. You can either play the scenarios as scenarios 4 and 5 in the core set campaign, or you can just play them as scenarios 1 and 2 of their own separate mini-campaign. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at these cards here. Alright, so it looks like this is the first deck. This is card number 1. So we have some quest cards for the Oath, So we have 3 quest cards there, and then the Caves of Nib and Doom has 4 cards. Alright, I'm not going to go ahead, I'm not going to read all these cards, but I will read a couple. So Spiders of Mirkwood, this isn't a crazy tough enemy. We have 3 threat, which is fairly high, but then we only have 2 attack and 2 defense, and then 4 health. So other than the threat, which is a little bit higher than normal, this is a fairly average enemy, I would say. And while it is engaged with you, Spiders of Mirkwood gets +1 attack for each exhausted character you control. And then Shadow, choose and exhaust 1 character you control. If this attack was undefended, also deal that character 2 damage. The Shadow effect is quite nasty. Exhausting your characters is always rough because really you really generally won't have too many more to spare, and you kind of need everyone at all times, so having to exhaust them can be tricky. And then of course if it's undefended, it's going to do 2 damage to that character as well, which is not good. And really it would also force you to choose a hero to exhaust in most cases, since an ally would generally not be able to recover from 2 wounds. And then while it is engaged with you, it gets +1 attack for each exhausted character you control, so you have to be careful with exhausting your characters to defend will actually make them more powerful, and of course exhausting all characters to quest also will make them, these Spiders of Mirkwood, more powerful, so it's kind of interesting there. So, Giant Spider, some 2 threat, 3 attack, 1 defense, and then 3 health. Forced after Great Spider engages you, exhaust a character you control, so more exhausting. The Eves of Mirkwood. While the Eves of Mirkwood is the active location, encounter card effects cannot be cancelled. Alright, so then some Goblin Trail here, which makes sense since you're following the trail of the goblins to find the captured woodsman. So we've had 6 progress tokens that need to be placed here, and we have a 3 threat there, but also it's worth 3 victory points, so that's kind of interesting there. So travel, reveal the top card of the encounter deck to travel here, and response, when Goblin Trail leaves play as an explored location, place 6 progress on the current quest. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Alright, we have Driven by Shadow, which is, of course, in the core set there. It's a reprint. Surprising Speed. When revealed, each player returns 1 enemy engaged with them to the staging area. If no enemy was returned to the staging area in this way, Surprising Speed gains Surge and Doomed 1. Attacking enemy gets +1 attack. Return attacking enemy to the staging area after the attack. Having enemies return to the staging area after they're engaged with you is just so annoying. It's one of the most annoying things, especially as a shadow effect, because they hit you, they do some damage to you, and then they go back to the staging area and you can't hit them back, which is, oh man, that really puts a damper into your plans. Oh no, no. This is not good. Caught in the Web is not a card I enjoy, let's just say. It's a reprint from the core set, and it says, when revealed, the player at the highest threat level attaches this card to one of their heroes, counts as a condition attachment, with the text, attached hero does not ready during the refresh phase unless you pay 2 resources from that hero's pool. Having your heroes just not be able to ready at the beginning of your turn, or rather the end of the turn, is very annoying. And so, yeah, I do not enjoy Caught in the Web, and so I'm always happy to be able to use a Test of Will and cancel Caught in the Web whenever I can, but when I do get it, it's not very fun. Okay, so that looks like those are the 20 cards from this one set here with the sword, which looks like it's from the Oath. So this is the Oath's primary set there. Looks like each scenario has their own encounter set, and then they also share one encounter set, which is actually the next one we're going to look at. So they each have their own set of unique cards, and then they share this encounter set here. So there's some common themes between them. And so, not surprisingly, we have a Goblin Troop here. We have 3 threat, 5 attack, 3 defense, and 6 health. Cannot have attachments. While Goblin Troop is engaged with you, each other Goblin enemy engaged with you gets +1 attack and +1 defense. Shadow, attacking enemy gets +2 to attack. So, no, you're not going to be able to put any nets on them, any forced snares, or any other traps on them, which makes sense since this is a whole troop of goblins instead of just a single enemy card like most other enemies. Like the Goblin Sniper here, this is a singular enemy, so you can throw a net around it. This is a whole squad of goblins, so you couldn't put a net around him. But Goblin Sniper is another card from the core set. Basically, he's just going to hang around in the staging area, and he's difficult to engage, and he's just going to be taking some pot shots at you until you are able to engage him. The Goblin Runners here have Surge, and they're fairly weak in terms of statistics, but that 3 attack is potentially going to be able to damage some of your heroes, so you're probably going to want to block that. And then we have a shadow effect saying attacking enemy makes an additional attack immediately after this one. Deal a new shadow card for that attack. This is something that really could cause some issues if you have an enemy with high attack being able to attack twice. So it's not great there. Goblin Town Scavengers. Statistically, this is a very weak enemy, so we just have 1 attack and thwart, and then 0 defense and 3 health. And then it says, when revealed, discard the top card of each player's deck until the end of the phase. Increase Goblin Town Scavengers' threat by the total printed cost of all cards discarded this way. Okay, so with that 1 revealed ability, this guy will be able to generate some threat there, which you'll have to deal with, but after the first turn, he's really not going to be too much of a threat. Wild Wargs. After Wild Wargs engages you, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If that card is a goblin enemy, put it into play, engage with you. Alright. So, get some extra guys engaged with you. But again, in terms of just looking at the raw numbers here, he's not the scariest enemy ever. Alright, let's do one more from this deck here. Goblins Under Ponyo. When revealed, each player must search the encounter deck and discard pile for a goblin enemy and put it into play, engage with them. Shuffle the encounter deck. This effect cannot be cancelled. Shadow, attacking enemies get +1 attack for each goblin enemy engaged with you. Alright, so this is just going to ensure that you always will have enemies engaged with you and goblins will be attacking you. Alright, so next up. So this is the communal encounter set for both scenarios. And then moving on to the encounter set specifically for the second scenario, the Caves of Nubin Doom. It's going to have their own set here. And so the Goblin Chieftain here has X's for all of his stats, but then 8. So we'll have to see what X is, and X is the staging number of the quest. Okay. And so this quest, if we remember, has 4 stages. So he will start out weaker, but then at the very end of the game, he will be going on with 4 attack, 4 threat, and 4 defense. So pretty beefy there. Alright, so then it says, cannot take damage, cannot have attachments. Okay, and forced after Goblin Chieftain attacks, either remove X progress from the quest or return to the staging area. So this is a very difficult enemy there, and you can't actually deal damage to him, so I'm assuming there's some scenario-specific way of being able to ignore that ability or whatever, but pretty tough even if you could deal damage to him. Cracked Pillar. So it has 2 threat and 2 progress tokens on this location to remove it. While Cracked Pillar is in the staging area, it gains. The first player may deal damage, may declare an attack against Cracked Pillar during the combat phase, as if it were an enemy engaged with them. Use Cracked Pillar's threat as its defense during this attack. Travel. Remove 4 damage from Cracked Pillar to travel here. Okay, so if you do enough damage to it, you can just bypass it completely. So you have the Cave Torch here. Attached to here, restricted action exhaust Cave Torch to place up to 3 progress tokens on a dark location, and then forced after Cave Torch exhausts, discard the top card of the encounter deck. If the card is an enemy, add it to the staging area. So the Cave Torch here was used in a lot of the Darewolf cycle. So it's a cycle all about exploring the mines of Moria, and I really enjoyed having the Cave Torch because you could exhaust it to do 3 progress tokens and place 3 progress tokens on a dark location, which can be very powerful. but if you do that, you will potentially attract enemies. So I thought it was very thematic and very, very fun. Oh no, it's a cave troll. This is a great cave troll. So he's 3 threat, 6 attack, 4 defense, and then 6 health. So pretty tough there. He cannot have attachments. For each point of excess combat damage dealt by Great Cave Troll, damage that is dealt beyond the remaining hit points of the character damaged by this attack, remove 1 progress from the current quest. And there are 2 of those. So, yeah, this guy right here is very reminiscent of the Hill Troll, except instead of increasing your threat through excess damage increasing, but instead of excess damage increasing your threat, it is going to remove progress tokens, which is not very good. Alright, Cavern Warg. We have 2 threat, 3 attack, 2 defense, and 3 health. Response: when Cavern Warg attacks you, exhaust Cave Torch to cancel the attack and return Cavern Warg to the staging area. And Shadow: if this attack destroys a character, return attacking enemy to the staging area after the attack. So, I could see some instances where you'd want to return this guy to the staging area to not have to face him, but then he's just going to provide his threat for next round, and also, don't forget, if you exhaust the Cave Torch, you're potentially going to be attracting another enemy, so I don't know how often I'd use that ability personally, but if you're really in a pinch and you had to, that's a nice out, I suppose. And we have a couple of those. Alright, Goblin Tunnels. We have 2 threat, 7 progress tokens to be placed here. We have 2 threat and 7 quest points. And while Goblin Tunnels is in the staging area, it gains Forced. After a goblin is revealed from the encounter deck, remove 1 progress from the current quest. Shadow: attacking enemy gets +1 attack, +3 instead if attacking enemy is a goblin. So every time a goblin comes out, we'll be undoing your progress. So not great there. Lightless Passage. I believe this card is actually in the Dark cycle as well, but I could be mistaken there. So we have 4 threat, 4 quest points, and to travel here, players must exhaust a Cave Torch to travel here. Shadow: cancel all combat damage dealt to attacking enemy this round. Ooh boy, that is not a great shadow effect. Basically, you just can't attack him. So not great there. Alright, Branching Paths. We have 1 threat, 3 quest points. While Branching Paths is in the staging area, each dark location gets +1 threat. Forced: after Branching Paths leaves play as an explored location, look at the top 3 cards of the encounter deck, choose 1 to reveal, and move the other 2 to the bottom of the deck in any order. Alright, skip some of these cards here. Crumbling Ruin. 1 revealed. Each player must exhaust a character card and discard the top card of their deck, if able. If the printed cost of the discarded card is equal to or higher than the remaining hit points of the exhausted character, you discard the exhausted character. I remember this card from the Dark cycle. Don't remember which scenarios it was in, but I remember really not liking this card. So yeah, I get to have this in some more scenarios. Yay! And there are 2 of those. Alright, Lost in the Dark. The player who controls Cave Torch must choose. Either exhaust Cave Torch, or progress cannot be placed on the quest until the end of the phase. Progress can still be placed on the active location. Shadow: deal 1 damage to the defending character. So, situationally, this could be very nasty, but overall, this is actually a card that I may, be a little bit happy to draw, because drawing this card means that the effects aren't as bad as drawing another card, but really yes, it hurts me in some ways, but this is not actually a terrible card that I would never want to draw, like Crumbling Ruin. I would never want to draw this card. But drawing this card is actually not too bad, so providing some breathing room there. And Watchful Eyes. I do not enjoy this card as well, and this is another one that has been used in some other scenarios. So when revealed, the first player attaches Watchful Eyes to one of their heroes. It counts as a condition attachment with the text limit 1 per hero. Forced: if attached hero is exhausted at the end of the combat phase, you reveal the top card of the encounter deck. Okay, so from here on out, looks like these are all cards that are the new campaign cards. So that, all this stuff back here is stuff that you will have already known about and already have played with if you already own the limited edition core set. These cards here, these are all new to the campaign. So we have the Stalking Goblin, which has 2 for all of his stats, and then Forced. After Stalking Goblin engages you, search the encounter deck, discard pile, and your collection, in that order, for a Goblin Sniper and add it to the staging area. Shuffle the encounter deck. Shadow. Add Stalking Goblin to the staging area. This is an interesting ability. I don't think I've had any other enemy abilities that will actually have me, like, look through my whole collection and find a specific card. This guy is just going to pull in a Goblin Sniper when he engages you. So yes, one of these guys here. And so this is part of, these are included in the encounter set that's used for both scenarios. So if you have the Stalking Goblin and you're playing one of these 2 scenarios, you will have them in the encounter deck or discard pile. So you won't need to look through your collection. But I don't know if you could gain this card and have it in a future scenario. But if you can, then you potentially have to look elsewhere in your collection for a Goblin Sniper. So it's kind of interesting, but we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm assuming it's pretty annoying to get, because that enemy basically counts as both the Stalking Goblin, but then it also brings in a Goblin Sniper, so almost has like a very specific surge ability. Alright, Shiny Distraction. This is Treachery, Surge, and Doomed 1. When revealed, each player may add 1 resource to each of their heroes' pools. Each player that does raises their threat by 5. Okay. Alright, and looks like we have just one of those. That's kind of interesting. So, it has Surge and Doomed 1, so it's always going to increase your threat by 1 and then have you draw an additional card. But having the choice to be able to gain a resource for each of the heroes' resource pool and add a resource to each of the heroes' resource pools, which could, in theory, give you 3 resources if you have 3 heroes, for a trade-off of 5 threat. This is not necessarily like a great trade-off that you'd want to do. Like, I wouldn't necessarily play a player card with this sort of ratio there, but in a pinch, as a treachery card, that's kind of interesting. Could be helpful, potentially. Alright, Guilty Conscience. And this one also has Surge. It says, when revealed, attach to the hero with the highest threat cost. Counts as an adaptation, attachment with the text, Forced. Raise your threat by 2 at the end of each round. Action, spend 2 resources from attached hero's resource pool to discard this card. Alright. Can really skyrocket your threat gain there. Alright. Now we're on to the good cards, the boons. Fervor of Lore. Setup. Attached to a hero. Attached hero gains the Lore resource icon. Action. Choose and discard 3 cards from your hand to heal all damage from a hero. Limit once per campaign, recording the campaign log when used. Alright. The Might of Tactics. Same, very similar thing here. We have setup attached to a hero. Setup attached to a hero. Attached hero gains the Tactics resource icon. Action, deal 1 damage to the attached hero, and to deal 3 damage to an enemy engaged with you. Limit once per campaign, record in campaign log when used. The Power of Spirit. Setup attached to a hero. Attached hero gains the Spirit icon. Action, exhaust the attached hero to place 3 progress on a location. Limit once per campaign, record in campaign log when used. The Secret of Leadership. Setup attached to a hero. Attached hero gains the leadership resource icon. Action, spend 1 resource from the attached hero's resource pool to ready a hero. Limit once per campaign. Record in campaign log when used. Okay, so these cards here are interesting. So they'll give your hero an additional resource icon and then a one-time use ability for the whole campaign. If I had to choose one of these to pick, I would potentially go with the Fervor of Lore. That's kind of nice, being able to discard 3 cards from your hand and just healing a hero to max. That can be very helpful. But all of these seem like pretty cool options. So yeah, it's pretty neat. I would say maybe the Secret of Leadership feels a little bit underwhelming compared to the other ones, because you're spending one resource to ready a hero, that's powerful, but I would say maybe it's a little bit less cool than being able to outright place progress on a location or deal a bunch of damage without attacking to an enemy, or healing one of your heroes to max. Those feel a little bit cooler. Those sound a little bit cooler to me than just readying a hero, which is a little bit more of a mundane action. It's very powerful, but it's not as interesting, I'd say. So, yeah, we'll have to see how those play out, how you get them. No time to waste. When playing this card, choose one. Quest action, remove no time to waste from the game and the campaign pool to reduce each player's threat by 3. Reveal the top card of the encounter deck. Draw one card. And then the quest action, draw one card. So there's another one-time use campaign ability. Looks like we have 4 of these, I'm assuming once per player. Reduce each player's threat by 3 and reveal the top card of the encounter deck. And that's like the real ability this card has, which it actually feels like a pretty good fair trade, especially if you're playing with multiple players. If you had 3 players in the game, you'd be reducing each player's threat by 3. So all told, you'd be reducing 9 threat, and then you reveal 1 card from the counter deck. That seems pretty good. In a solo game, reducing your threat by 3, since it's just you, it would be a grand total of 3 threat reduced, and then you'd still be revealing only 1 encounter card, so a bit less bang for your buck there, but seems kind of interesting there. And then, of course, if you don't actually want to use the card this game or at this moment, you can just use the secondary option to draw a card, which would just replace the card. So you discard this card and draw a new one, essentially. So that's those. And then Ranger Sense. And it says, when playing this card, choose one. Alright. Action, remove Ranger Sense from the game and the campaign pool to look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Add 1 to your hand and then put the rest back in any order, and then it also has the action basically being able to replace this card if you don't want to use it. Action, draw 1 card. And so this card here, just look at the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 to your hand, and put the rest back in any order. That can be very useful in many instances. Being able to draw a card is great, and of course being able to choose from 4 options which card you want, and then putting them back in any order so you can choose in which order you want to draw them. Very useful. I really look forward to being able to use this Ranger Sense. So one thing I will say, with all of the boon cards, which are actually quite a few of them in this little expansion here, they're all single-use cards, which I think is less cool than the ones that were given in the core sets campaign, where the boons there would provide a permanent bonus for the entirety of the campaign. Now, yes, since the campaign was so short, you didn't get to use them in too many games, but if one of your heroes got the Valor boon card from defeating a troll at the beginning of the Journey Along the Anduin scenario, you'd be able to use that card for the entirety of that scenario, and then you'd also have Valor for the entirety of the 3rd scenario. And then if you actually had this expansion as well, and you wanted to add on these 2 scenarios to your campaign, you'd be able to have Valor for the entirety of the Oath, and then the entirety of Caves of Nubin Din. You'd have it for 3.5 games or so, depending on when your hero actually got Valor from defeating the troll. But you'd have it for at least 3 games, and you'd be able to use it every time your hero attacked, because because Valor lets you to basically move 1 boon token from your hero and place it on the enemy you're attacking. And so you'd be able to use that every time you attack for the next 3 games. That's a cool addition there, whereas these are all one-time use abilities, which do a really cool thing one time and then are useless. Now, the one exception are the Power of Spirit and all the other versions of this, because they all will give your hero an extra resource icon, which will give you some additional ways of deck building, so that is pretty cool. But other than that, they're all just like one-time use abilities. You can save it for when you want to use it, but then once you use it, it's gone. So really not as cool or exciting as the other options that stick around for longer, but I'm still looking forward to seeing how they play out. Next up we have the 2 campaign cards, which I am not going to read. I'm going to wait until I actually play these scenarios here, and I would like to just let you all know that I am planning on playing through this expansion. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do it as just like a standalone 2 scenario long campaign, or if I want to tack it on to the core sets campaign and play through a full 5 scenario campaign. If you have a preference of seeing me play through the scenarios with a fresh deck that has no additional modifications and boons and burdens, or if you'd rather me play through with a deck that has been through the core sets campaign with all the burdens and boons added to it, let me know in the comments. But I am planning on playing through these 2 scenarios as a campaign. I just don't know if I want to have a fresh deck or more veteran deck to play through the scenario. So we'll see what I do there. But then we have these 2 round sequence cards. Okay, this is weird. Okay, so let's go through this real quick. So we have the resource phase. Each player draws 1 card and adds 1 resource to the resource pool of each character they control. The planning phase, the quest phase, the travel phase, encounter phase, combat, and then refresh phase. And then you have the pages for the rules reference. And then you have 2 of them. Alright, I have some thoughts on this. I did not think that this was actually going to be in the scenario here. So, first of all, I feel like this would be very helpful for a new player. Or even, someone who's been playing the game for a while, but still wants to, just be able to make sure they're doing everything properly, being able to look at these cards here to see, okay, what happens during the encounter phase exactly. Now, you can go to the rules reference to find more details, and of course, the page numbers are right there, so you can go to rules reference quite easily and see what all you're supposed to do. So I think these look pretty helpful, and player aids are always something that games should be giving you, so that you don't have to be flipping through the whole 50-page rulebook. Instead, you just have all the key information on these little cards, and everyone's able to have one of them, and then you're just being able to streamline the game experience and make it flow better. So I think it's great to have these, but 2 questions. First, why are they here? They re-released these 2 scenarios and added in the campaign cards, which is cool. And this is an expansion. But they also just re-released the core set with the original 3 scenarios and everything in there, and then more campaign cards. Why would you include rules reference cards in an expansion that you'll typically purchase and play after you've already played the core game and have already become comfortable with the core game and the flow of the rounds? And why would you put them in the expansion instead of putting them in the core set, which is the first time most people will be able to play your game and see your game will be the core set? So to me, this just makes no sense. Why would you put these rules reference cards in the expansion and not the core set? So this just makes no sense. I don't know if they were going to put this in the core set and they forgot after they had already sent it off to the factory and then they stuck them in this expansion, or what happened. But this makes no sense to me to have them in the expansion versus the actual core set when people are learning the game and need these the most. Now, the second thing is there are 2 of them. This says, let's see, yep, it can be played, these scenarios can be played by 1 to 4 players. And the core set very specifically supports 1 to 4 players. In the past, you would need to get 2 core sets, because if you wanted to play 3 or 4 players, because each core set only supported 1 or 2 players, and so if you put them together, you can support 3 or 4 players. But with the new core set, it supports 3 and 4 players right out of the box. And so you want 4 player rates. So why do you only have 2 when the game plays up to 4 players? And why aren't they in this expansion and not in the core game? These cards should have been included in the core set, and there should have been 4 of them. So I do not understand why they're here. I think that'd be helpful for teaching the game to new players, but they don't belong in this expansion. They belong in the core set, and there should really be 4 of them instead of 2, because the game supports up to 4 players. So that's kind of weird, but that aside, I'm excited to be trying out these scenarios here. There's 15 campaign cards, So 82 cards in this expansion, 15 of them are new cards that have never been used before in any scenario, and then the rest are cards that have been used before, either in the original, like, limited edition core set, or were already included in other expansions such as the core set or the Darewolf cycle with some of these other cards here. So looking forward to playing those. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me play through these scenarios with a fresh deck or with a deck that's already been through the core set. And I am really looking forward to trying these scenarios out and trying out the campaign. Hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Hope it was helpful to you so you can see what's in these scenarios and some of the cards that come in them, and then the new campaign cards. And if you did enjoy the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to Maelstrom Gaming to see more content just like this. And until next time, happy gaming!